Welcome to Future Foodcast. I'm Pam Line-Miller, your host, and I'm very thankful and would like to give a shout out to our sponsor, Farm to Plate, a software company creating tomorrow's food business ecosystem today. And with us today, we have the Chief Operating Officer for Carolina Ingredients, Frank McKinney. Frank, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and I am really looking forward to this conversation because you have such a great story to tell about your time at Carolina Ingredients. But first of all, for people that might not know, because Carolina Ingredients isn't necessarily on a label for us, tell us what you do.
We're a 25-year-old food ingredient blending company of seasonings for snack, bakery, beef, poultry, and bakery goods. So what we do is we basically make things taste a little bit better. And we try to do that by using and formulating over the past 3 years with healthier ingredients and that's what our customers are requesting. So we do full food science development of the seasonings. We presently have 788 active ingredients, everything from salts and sugars and flours to jackfruit powder and elderberry powder. So people, there's a large range of products that we do make, but we're business to business. We are not retail. So yeah, you don't see us on a label, but we make the products of major food manufacturers taste better.
Well, we're all benefiting from the products of your labor to make things taste better, even though we don't know it. That's why I wanted you to explain about that intermediary step, because you are B2B. You're in the internals of the supply chain of the food that we eat, and we aren't necessarily going to see your name brand on something that we buy. And I think that's important for us to know that there are people out there like you. But when you came to Carolina Ingredients, they were in need of some review and reworking. Can you give us a view of what the situation was like?
Yep, the founder and the entrepreneur, a very successful individual, great business, no fatal flaws, but he was great sales, great business person, just very dynamic. Operationally, was not his strength. Operations was not his strength. So, and maintenance and quality control and the whole operational package, right? So he had a turnaround situation. He had to turn down some business the year before because of the inability of this operation to execute. And he wasn't going to commit to a customer to produce something that he could forecast that he wasn't going to be able to. So in his level of responsibleness and character and integrity that he had, he said, I've got to do a turnaround situation here. And that's when he brought me in because this is my ninth facility that I've worked in. I've worked in some of the best in the United States, and I've worked at the largest improvement needed facilities also, right? So I got put into and moved into plants that needed cultural change, operational change, quality, cost, productivity, safety. So as a dynamic entity. So that's what I did here. And I was given full reign. I had to justify and just not off the top of my head. I had a very strategic plan on how to bring this about. And from my experience, I had told, before I was hired, I told Carolina Ingredients that 80 to 85% of what I saw out on the floor as far as improvement goes isn't going to be new equipment. It's not going to be the shiny new dime. They had functional equipment, needed more maintenance, had functional processes, but it was all about compliance and execution and education and training and understanding, right? So I always say, 85% of the change in any facility, especially the initial turnaround, is all about people. It's all about people.
Well, and let's take a brief pause there, because I think the entrepreneurial story of the founder, kudos to him, because a lot of entrepreneurs find themselves in exactly that situation. They have a great company going, a great idea, good foundation, but then you meet up with the maximum of your abilities in certain areas. And good that he realized he needed to go outside of himself in order to be able to grow it bigger, and went and got the help that he needed. And you were that help, because you've been through so many different companies, 9, I think you said, to come in with a broader view and some experience and perspective on even where to start. I imagine you get overwhelmed at a certain point and you don't even know where to start.
Well, and it really is. This may sound somewhat contrary, but it's all about basics, right? And when I walked in and I was talking the first couple of weeks here, they were talking about robotic stacking, and I said, whoa, robotic stacking. You guys have to learn we got to stack right the first time with what we've got. And we weren't achieving that, right?
Technology is good, but not if you're automating a process that's not good. I hear what you're saying. You've got to hone the process that you have before you can let technology be an advantage for you, I think is
absolutely. And it's also the change management curve. When you look at an organization, if you go into an organization and you're trying to implement things that are far above and outside of the capabilities of the organization, it's just going to crash and burn, because it's all about people again, right? So you have to bring them up. You have to create the vision, right? Engage them in everything that's being done out on the floor, and you have to train and educate, and utilize the tools that you have. If it's a stopwatch, one of the most used tools in my production and operations management is a stopwatch. I don't have to use that anymore for process validation and process mapping. Now I've got a security system where I can scroll through a complete cycle of a process and look at it from start to finish in a whole day in 45 minutes, where it would have taken 2 to 3 days. Absolutely. But that's also a learning tool. I can teach and educate because I can know what I know. And while it's only this much of everything else, I do know what I know. And if I can pass that on, and this team can think and ask the questions that I would be asking, their probability of success is, tenfold higher.
Absolutely. Frank, would you agree that one of the big problems in manufacturing today is that the people that know what they know, and it might be the guy on the manufacturing floor that knows this much, but he really knows what he knows about this much. And he's leaving, or he's retiring, or he's no longer working that, and you lose that much, all that really intricate knowledge about that area of the business. And what I'm hearing is you engaged those people and said, we need to know what you know. We're going to use what you know, and then we're going to put the automation to that. You talked about the system you have now, but you didn't start there. You started with the stopwatch and figuring out what they were manually doing, right?
Absolutely. It all started with basics. And while a lot of people are bored by that, because it's not real flashy, results talk and everything else walks, right? And that's the old school of thinking. And the bottom line is, to get tangible results, to engage people out on the floor, that's where my bread is buttered. I know where my success comes from. My success comes from their success, right? And so if I don't teach, educate, and engage them in every step of the way and learn from them, because they know their jobs better than I do, that's hands down. I won't spend 2,000 hours doing their particular job. So I want to leverage that. I want what's between people's ears just as much as, the physical part of work, right? But what's between their ears is where the gold nuggets come from, right? Yes. That's where the gold nuggets come from, as far as being able to convert that knowledge. And we've had some very tenured individuals that, retired over through the COVID thing. And, the tribal knowledge that was lost, what we found out, there was twofold. Knowledge that had been developed on very, very solid processes wasn't completely lost, as where there were weak processes, people made up their own process, and that made that person special, because it was, if they were there, these 6 things happened. But if they weren't there, those 6, maybe 4 of those 6 things didn't happen. So that was almost a self-preservation type culture. And we had to break that by putting in open, clearly documented, educationally based processes. Here are the 14 steps. I mean, I've got to we don't do this anymore, but 7 years ago, we posted the 7-step process to packaging a product, because 2 or 3 steps were being missed pretty consistently, enough to cause enough quality concerns. But the point wasn't about punishment. It wasn't about retribution. It wasn't about any of that. It was about results and being successful together. Right. So we built a culture that it was okay to make a mistake, because we had systems and processes in place to catch it at the next step. Nice. Right? So there was never harm, no foul. If our process checks, our quality control checks, and our process checks caught something wrong, I celebrate that.
Right.
I celebrate that.
Yes. You can fix it if you patch it.
Absolutely. And what do people do if it's all about fire and brimstone and blaming, right?
This is why we have food safety issues, is because the people on the floor are afraid to speak up when they see an issue or make a mistake or have to stop production or feel like they're going to cost the company money, and that'll be negative towards them. But what I'm hearing from you is, you did away with that kind of culture. You were like, we are all in this together. We're all about results. We're all about quality results. And you get cheered, and it's positive to bring up when something goes wrong, or you see something that shouldn't be happening, that is happening. And we are going to stop production and fix it, because it's going to be better for all of us in the long run, and the consistency and quality of our product.
Right. So on a monthly basis, I take what we call, whether it's a safety near miss or a Q, we call quality near misses, anything that our process caught that was wrong, right? And we bring those up, and I've financially put, okay, if this blender did not catch that this product was weighed incorrectly and created a substandard blend, it wouldn't have passed test. It would have cost us up to $60,000 because of the product that it was going to go into. And what did it cost us when that blender found it? It cost us around $8,200. Absolutely nothing I'm cheering about, but I didn't need to go to Notre Dame to understand that $82 or $60. I'm gonna take the 82 and say that's a great investment to have avoided a $60,000 loss. Not to mention the customer perception, the shipping, all the things that go into that.
Wow, Frank, that is genius to just, for our audience listening, that approach to actually monetize what it cost you to shut down production or fix that problem or whatever it was. But let's compare that to what would have happened if we didn't address the safety issue or the production issue or the consistency or whatever the anomaly might have been. I just love that whole approach. Well, okay, excellent. The way you just started the whole thing. It's no wonder you've been so successful, but share some of that success with us. What's happening now? What's happening at Carolina Ingredients? What happened over the 7 years since you've been there? What's going on?
I'm still here.
Yeah, which is good.
So over that time, this was a turnaround situation, and the whole turnaround situation came about because the entrepreneur and founder realized when an outside business looked at an acquisition of Carolina Ingredients, they said, no, we're not interested. We like the business. We're just not interested in the way it's being ran. Okay. And so 2 years later, that same company came back in, obviously saw dramatic changes. And that wasn't because I'm smarter than anybody. I was smart enough to listen and engage and then put my experience into it, but mixed it up. This operation, this team mixed it up and made a very successful product. And so that company, we are now a fully owned subsidiary of Mitsubishi International Food Ingredients. One of the best things that could have ever happened to this business. 7 years ago, we were producing 9.5 million. We did 17.5 million this past year. Our EBIT was right around 4.5%, and we are at 7%. We would produce 7 years ago 185,000 pounds in 5 days, and it took a sixth day to produce up to 250,000 pounds. We do 450,000 pounds in 5 days, and I've only made one systematic change, and that was to take the small blends away. So what I want to impress upon, I didn't get millions and millions of dollars to put into equipment. I did get millions of dollars to build the infrastructure, the education, the process, everything that's inside that's focused on driving people's behaviors. Absolutely. And that's the advantage of being a part of Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi is very cognizant and very respectful of culture. They know the value of it. They know the value of it at its core, right? And so our ability to do that has taken our profitability. We went from 45 total employees. We're at 95 now. So what we've done is we've maximized out what our capabilities are, and we're only a one shift operation. So now, instead of running 5 days a week, we run 4 days a week and we run 10 hours a day. If we run the fifth day, it's because we have a large order that a customer needs in an abnormally short amount of time. So our rule of thumb is if we're running 4 days, we're doing our maintenance and our cleanup, everything on Friday. We have much better attendance, much better retention, especially on the hourly ranks, because they're basically getting Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They can work Friday if they want, and that's for overtime, right? Right. But so we've changed the culture here. The average in food manufacturing, as far as if you take your EBIT, your earnings before interest and taxes, at the end of the year, you take that lump sum, major food manufacturers are right around 3 to 5% reinvestment. We're at 18%. Wow. So this is a long-term investment. This isn't okay. And we're profitable, and we're very profitable. But the thing about that is we're profitable and we could maintain our costs all through COVID. This last year was the first time in 5 years that we had a price increase, not because everything got cheaper over 5 years. It's because we offset them with the investments and the process change and the tools to enable this team to do more, basically with less time. And that's always the goal, right? So we've kind of hit our plateau on one shift. We will be moving to an extended second shift, and that's our next step. And that'll take us to right around 27 million pounds capacity. So we're poised and ready to do that. Wow.
That's really exciting. And I thank you for laying that out for those that are listening to us that are involved in operations, maybe similarly, or, are just interested in that. It's just a great story about how important too the people are and the culture is. And like you said, paying attention to that. And your people must be very happy if they're able to put out so much more and working less and having time with their families. That is what is happening a lot with employment right now, is that people are making decisions about balancing their lives in those ways. And so your timing couldn't have been better to be able to implement some of these changes that you put in there. Well, and I'm sorry.
No, and just to be supported in doing that, this is not easy. Okay. It is not easy for me to be told about a $12,000 loss. It's very difficult for me to be positive about that. But when I look and when I slow myself down and I discipline myself to show what that would have cost us if that got outside our plant, even I can smile about that. It doesn't take the sting away from the $12,000 loss, but it sure takes the sting away from the non-sustainable business practices that would have hurt us badly.
Right. And then also the public knowledge of what might be going on, depending on what it was, or if you have to have some kind of recall, or, all of the publicity that might go along with, depending on what kind of error it is. If you can catch things earlier and before it gets outside of your doors, that's better. Fix it and move forward. You're right. It doesn't take away the sting, but it does help you elevate internally without everyone knowing.
Absolutely.
Right. Next steps involve you're gonna just be you're set up to continue to grow. You're gonna put more people in another shift, have a little bit of extended shift. So that's a thought. You talked about your equipment and making sure, maintenance is so important. The equipment it's like buying a car. I usually buy used cars and drive them forever, because when you take care of them, they last. When you change the oil, when you rotate the tires, when you do the things you need to do. For those of us who are average consumers, those in manufacturing, though, equipment maintenance is the equivalent, right? You have to take care of those very, very expensive manufacturing machines.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to set us up for the future,
we've
invested in things like near-infrared technology. We do
tell me about that.
Near-infrared technology been used in pharmaceuticals for decades. And it was developed for pharmaceutical because when you take a pill, you want to make sure that it has the exact amount in that pill. Well, those are made on a stamping machine. And so they verified and validated using near-infrared technology, which is simply a way of taking 60 pictures of each particulate in a blend and knowing which one they are. And it shows when they are completely and evenly blended, so that we can certify that, okay, of these 12 ingredients, I can take a pound from this side and a pound from that pallet over there, and it will test within plus or minus 2% of what we say. And so when we're talking about 2%, that sounds like maybe a lot, but we're talking about 4 particles is 2% of that blend, right? So it's very, very accurate, and it's very, very important, especially for our functional blends in the meat application, where they're used to stop the meat from drying out when it's cooked, from draining nutrients from it. It makes the meat, the chicken or the steak, maintain, not to just take its nutrients and let it run out into a pan, but to stay inside. And then also, the quality, the mouthfeel, etc. So near infrared technology, there's only baby food manufacturers are using NIR in food manufacturing. We're the only seasoning manufacturer in the United States using NIR.
Okay.
And we partnered with 2 very, very successful companies to do that. And they have enabled us to stay ahead of the curve. The next thing that we see on the horizon, especially in food ingredients, is heavy metal. Heavy metal testing it's been accelerating, right? So as we're finding out things that are growing all over the world, right? There are certain areas and certain things. There are beech nut. Beech nut stopped making any baby food that was rice-based, because rice has an accelerated and an elevated level of specific heavy metals, depending on where it's grown. So what we're doing is we're testing our incoming ingredients. There's 10 ingredients that we've identified that have a higher risk. We end up testing all of our ingredients over a whole year, but we couldn't do that if at $100 per 100-gram test for heavy metal. That's very, very expensive, right?
Yeah, it's a lot.
So we were afforded to take a TXRF technology, buy that machine, and the whole investment's about $200,000. But we also test for $3.50 per sample. so we can accelerate our testing, stay cost competitive, and be responsible to the customers and obviously the final consumer that's consuming the products that we're putting in to make the food taste better. But if it's not healthy, that's against our business practices. That's against everything that we stand for.
Right.
And so we're staying ahead of things like that with the NIR and the TXRF, the heavy metal testing. That's just two examples.
Yeah, I think that the infrared technology just validating the distribution of the blend that you say you're getting, that you really are getting that blend. Yes. And that's a market differentiator for you. No one else is doing that. So
right. It empowers, it's definitely empowered our salespeople. Absolutely.
If I were a salesperson for you, that'd be maybe the first thing I'm going to talk about.
Right. And we're proud of that because we've taken some very functional blends that have to be very, very accurate. Because if they're missing part, they can lose 100,000 pounds of meat, even though it's only at 1/100% going into that. If it's not right, it's not going to be a functional blend. So yeah, we got about $2 million worth of business just because of NIR.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And that's a neat differentiator for you. And I'm really glad that the whole technology, we love technology here at Future Foodcast. Our sponsor is a technology software company with blockchain product. We just love it. We love to hear about how technology is helping companies to deliver better and more quality food, ingredients, and products to consumers. We as consumers love that. And we love that there are companies out there like Carolina Ingredients that are doing the hard work and keeping the quality up. I mean, is there anything that you do retail where I could buy anything from you? Is there anything I can buy from you? I would love to.
No, we have absolutely no retail outlets.
No retail outlets.
But if you eat chicken, beef, pork, snack foods, any of not the top three, but I'd say that in the top 10 snack manufacturers in the United States, there is a 90% chance you're already eating our product.
So I have a good excuse now to eat more snack foods. Is that what you're telling me?
But you know what? You might have to have a Brussels sprout puff or a cauliflower puff. So, we make that too, right? So we do a lot of different seasonings.
Well, I love Brussels sprouts and cauliflower. Luckily for you, Frank. Thank you for sharing all this information with us. Before we go, as we have probably overwhelmed our audience with just quality information today. Is there anything else you'd like to leave them with that we haven't talked about?
The only thing that I would want your audience to understand is that we all have a responsibility in the food industry. And there have been times in my career that I have not been proud to work in the food industry because of some of the things that are being done, especially with processed foods, right? And those had a time. But as we're making fresher products, healthier products, that we all have the responsibility. And it's not about being vegan or non or this or that. It's about responsibility to the health of, that's what I take pride in, that people actually consume and use our product. My kids, my grandkids, my family still buys products from every single company I've worked for because of that loyalty. And I want your audience to understand that this is a joint responsibility, and it's not about being pious or holier than thou. It's about being transparent, talking about the things that need to be talked about, and you know what? Being responsible to each other as human beings.
Thank you so much, Frank. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today on Future Foodcast. I also want to thank our sponsor, Farm to Plate, a software company enabling better food supply chain management. If you'd like to know more, you can check them out at farmtoplate.io. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Future Foodcast. Future Foodcast is powered by Farm to Plate, the leading food blockchain platform. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date with the very latest innovations in the food industry.